Hello, hello everyone, and welcome back to the Honeycomb and Hunt a Killer. We're on episode 4 of the Blair Witch box set. Where we last left off, as we were searching for the Kent boy, we found out that Carver stole the other son, Tristan, as well, or Skunk, as he's like to be called. I just kept some things more accessible than others. I have my other boxes to the side in case I need anything from them, but really just gonna keep a few things like the pin for the UV light. I don't know if I'll need the Carver stuff. I just like having it out. Of course, the map. We haven't really needed it since the first one, but it's been fun to have. And the notebook from Liam, just good for taking notes. It has all that space in it. I also made myself my own little cipher all in one place, so it'll be easier for me to like just get that done. It was flipping back and forth was getting kind of annoying, so I just wrote down my own cipher. So I got all that, and we're still missing 2 from the Carver cipher, but that's okay. Like always, we're gonna start with opening this, getting everything sorted out, what all we have. I have already opened it. I always open it ahead of time just to make sure everything's in it. Everything is in it. I've never had that problem. The only real problem I've had so far is the folder not having the UV part, and that's been about it. So let's go over the contents that we have. That to the side. Of course, the usual letter from Rosemary telling us what we need to do for this one time. I'm going to assume this is another. Well, this is either a Carver note. This is probably a Carver note. Something from the History Museum, because we always have something from the History Museum. An excerpt from a play that Anthony Repino, who is one of the maintainers of the History Museum, has given us. Let's see. Some more notes. And this looks like the Parr house. Yeah, I bet it is. Rustin Parr was... I'll check in a second if this is what it is, but Rustin Parr was from the original movie. He was someone back in the 1940s, 50s that stole a bunch of kids in Burkittsville. Saying it was for the witch, and we have a new map for the Black Hills Forest. So we're finally actually going into the woods. And the items that came with it is a compass and a magnifying glass. So have fun with that. So let's get started, and we will get started with Rosemary's note, see what we need to figure out this time around. And go from there. Hello. Carver left me another message a few nights ago. He left a note right on my front doorstep. Of all the sick, invasive, downright evil things to do, hasn't this son of a bitch done enough to me? When will I have suffered enough? When I think about him slithering around out in the woods, looking at my house from the tree line and peering into my windows, my head gets light and I get so nauseated that I feel as though I might be dying. I can't sleep at all anymore. Every night I just sit up on the porch or in Tristan's bed with Hud's old shotgun in my lap until the sun finally rises. Sometimes I'll hear a noise in the night and run toward it, finally reading to pull the trigger on this lunatic, but it's only ever the wind. I haven't shown Landon Carver's message. It'll just get sent off to some lab where it'll gather dust on a shelf for months, if not years. Even if it gets fast-tracked, what good will it do? The sheriff's office already knows where he is, and they're still not finding him. The forest is too huge and confusing for them to handle. It's time to take this completely into my own hands, like I should have done from the beginning. There's no point in spending another second in this house or this town. My sons aren't here. They're in that forest. Carver's only gotten cockier over these past few months. At this point, he wants me to come out and find him. Something in that note Something in that note has to give us some sort of context as to where he's hiding. Luckily, even if the lead is obscure, we've got a bona fide expert on the Black Hills Forest on our side. It took a while to convince Anthony to help me collect what we need. He kept trying to talk me down at first. Eventually, I had to grab him by the shoulders, look him dead in the eyes, and tell him that there's already one man standing between me and my sons. That one man is already one too many, and that friendship or no, I'm prepared to bring that number to 0 by any means necessary. That finally convinced him to relent. Anthony gathered most of what I'm sending you from the museum attic. He said that since the forest is so dangerous, my best chance of making a successful journey out there was to study the accounts of people who made trips deep into the woods and lived to tell the tale. You'll need to cross-reference the map with the historical accounts Anthony has given us and find the location of Carver's hiding spot. When you figure it out, send me the correct map coordinates on the tip line at kitcase.com. The new password is Echo12. Even though I'm going to be totally alone out there, I have faith that the help I get from the outside is going to see me through. Rosemary. So I'm actually going to switch out the maps for convenience for me, because it sounds like we're going to be looking over them a lot to figure out where we need to go. So let's get the map out here. I'll turn it around when we're done looking at it, but for right now I'm going to keep it facing me. One day I'll actually have a better camera that's over my shoulder so you guys see it exactly the way I do, but until I can get that set up, that might be a moment before I can get that set up. So we got the map out. Okay, so I'm going to go over Carver's note first. It's got a cipher on it, but it's the Carver cipher, and I'm actually pretty decent at the Carver cipher. So, let's see. Rosemary, the boys keep calling out into the woods for you, and you never answer them. You've really been letting them down over these past few months, haven't you? In fact, you've been letting them down for their entire lives, never able to protect them, to comfort them, to realize the depth of their pain. At least now, you'll never be able to fail them again either. Remember when you would play hide and seek with Liam when he was little? How he would always hide in the roots of that gnarled old tree at the very edge of the forest? I'd watch from the tree line, seeing you pretend to search everywhere, even though he always hid in the same place. I'm sure you wish it was that easy now, but this game is going to be a fair measure more challenging. You're not going to be able to just waltz into the woods and stumble upon the light of my campfire. That's not what she wants. She wants you to suffer, and so do I. But if you're smart enough, maybe you'll be able to find your way to your sons. Maybe you'll even get a glimpse of dear old Hud. Oh, and in case you haven't figured it out yet, there's a reason that your search parties have failed to find me for so long. Sunlight conceals the truth of the forest. To see the light of my fire, you'll have to enter after dark. I don't need to tell you to come by yourself. I already know you will. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the cipher real quick. That shouldn't be too bad. Especially where I have this up here, it makes life just easier. Also, I for some reason, can understand this cipher a lot easier than the other ones. And once you really get started, you can normally guess. It's pretty easy to make the rest of the words. Find us where. Shred. Find us where a shred of property was lost. Oh, that's just this Carver, doesn't it? Yeah, this is Carver. Okay. And just making sure there's no message left by Leon. The battery on the UV light is so bad. It's like my only other complaint. Okay, so that's done. Now, was the shred of property talking about one of... Oh, there's like little words written all over this. Okay, I'll look at the map a little bit closer in a second. Let me go ahead and just read all this stuff off. Okay, Burkittsville History Museum. Investigator, since Rosemary is truly hell-bent on doing this, and you're the one who's managed to help her get this far already, I'm going to do everything in my power to arm the both of you with as much information as possible. I collected a few things I think will help you navigate the forest. 3 historical documents, a map, a magnifying glass, and a compass. The 3 historical documents have each been taken from the museum's archives. I'm including them because they each convey the experience of someone who spent a prolonged period of time in the forest and came out more or less intact. I hope they'll provide some guidance on how to get your bearings in the woods, and how to navigate between the 3 of its major landmarks in particular once you do. I imagine the map and its accompanying instruments will be useful on that front as well. As far as I'm aware, the map itself is the more geographically accurate account of the forest to date. That's including satellite imagery. Digital imaging of the area has always proven to be a challenge. There's actually a very interesting history behind the map and the man who made it. Emmanuel Ramos was a renowned surveyor and cartographer who was hired by a now-defunct sawmill to chart out the area in 1953 after a number of the facility's employees began to complain that none of the maps of the area were accurate. As the story goes, Ramos became obsessed with the forest during that period. When he turned in the map, he told sawmill officials that traditional directions don't work in the forest, and that instead travelers had to move according to the cues that the land itself gives them. He said he considered the cues to be cardinal. That strikes me as a melodramatic way to describe the cartographic process, but I suppose that he'd earned the right at that point, seeing as he'd successfully charted a region that had confounded his colleagues for centuries. The record on Ramos gets a little hazy after that. He completely fell off the map, so to speak, within a year of completing the project. The compass and magnifying glass I'm passing on to you belong to Ramos as well. Maybe using them will help you see the forest the same way he did. And alright, I admit that I'm rambling about obscure historical facts so that I don't have to put my feelings into words. Detective, I want you to know that Rosemary is the strongest person I've ever met. She's managed to stand so tall for so long in the face of such unbelievable loss. But at the end of the day, she's only human, and the forces she's going up against aren't. Please do the best you can to see her through this. Oi, Rianchi. Okay, so we've got a play and some more accounts to read. I don't think anything's going to... I doubt anything's going to have the UV this time around. Maybe? Maybe if the UV light wasn't so bad. Whatever. Okay. Execution of the Blair Witch, written by Anthony Rapinoe, Act 1, Scene 5. This script is a section of a historical play that I staged a few years ago titled The Past Never Dies, a first-person anthology of tales from Old Blair. This particular scene is a dramatization of the Honorable Judge Jonathan Goodneighbor's journal entries, written just a few months before his death in 1785. Goodneighbor's journal was originally found in the walls of the museum during HUD's renovations. A rat had made its nest out of the pages, but the few sections that were still legible have provided a fascinating insight into the trial and condemnation of the alleged Blair Witch. While the lack of concrete information regarding the accused witch's death in those particular pages have been long since lost, forced me to take a number of creative liberties and make some educated guesses. All of the information on the directions that the good neighbor took in the forest itself are accurate to history. Okay, scene 5. Judge Goodneighbor's quarters, afternoon. Oh, interior Judge Goodneighbor's quarters, afternoon. Goodneighbor paces the floor of his bedroom and crosses to his desk. Sitting, he prepares his journal and writes. Goodneighbor, writing warily. This is the journal of Jonathan Goodneighbor, recorded this horrid evening, February 17th, 1785. The townsfolk complain of witchcraft. Many children bear the same mark on their wrists from where she carved and siphoned blood. It was told to me that she collected the blood into several small bowls and arranged them in her cellar into some satanic symbol. I, being a godly man as well as a man of the law, ordered an investigation to be conducted at once. An hour's walk into the forest, we discovered the old woman's home, encircled with fencing of wood bound in twine. Rushing inside into the fruit cellar, we found her standing in the corner as if expecting our arrival. I saw no sign of the ritual and no evidence of her working her craft. It made no difference. She had ample time to conceal her doings, and the children's testimony was damning enough. We bound the hag in shackles and carried her to meet justice. Goodneighbor leans back in his chair, deep in thought. He stands crossing to the window to stare out on the town. Goodneighbor, a loud foreboding. We must put this witch on trial and submit to her to her punishment with utmost haste. Blackout, and of course we've got the little drawing in there. Interior, Judge Goodneighbor's quarters, night. Goodneighbor angrily storms into the room. It is dimly lit by a single candle. A storm rages outside the window. His desk is cluttered with books. He sweeps his arm across the tabletop, throwing the mess to the floor. He sits and furiously begins to write. Goodneighbor, writing. February 21st, 1785. Though the children of Blair exposed her deeds, the old woman had nothing to say on the matter. Even when I bellowed at her in a most thunderous voice to reveal her true purpose, she said nothing. Finally, I was left with no option but to take a hot poker to her skin, a reminder of the everlasting hellfire which awaits all those who refuse to repent. She did not so much as flinch. No mortal could have withstood the searing pain of that fire, and so it was proven in her silence that she was indeed wed to the devil. The trial was complete. The windows blow open, extinguishing Goodneighbor's candle. The stage is dark. Goodneighbor, shocked. Damned storm. Hey, Abs! Hoy! A flash of lightning briefly illuminates the room, revealing an old woman watching Goodneighbor as he closes the window. He doesn't seem to notice her. The room returns to darkness, and when Goodneighbor relights his candle, she's gone. He continues. Goodneighbor, writing. As I delivered the sentence, I expected some cry of protestation, and yet she sat staring at the wall with unfocused eyes. Come the morning, my companions and I shall bring the witch to a quiet place to carry out her sentencing. With a heavy sigh, Goodneighbor lies down his quill. Blackout. Interior, Judge Goodneighbor's quarters, day. Goodneighbor appears exhausted. He has heavy red scratches on the left side of his face and neck. His robes are torn and his boots are muddy. Goodneighbor, writing. February 22nd, 1785. And so the courts have done their work, and the law has been upheld. Desiring to place distance between ourselves and the fair town, we had traveled until we came upon a huge bone-white rock. I suggest that we complete the deed there, as it seemed as good a spot as any. However, we soon began to hear a terrible noise, the sound of hundreds of crows cawing in the distance. I judged the birds to be an hour from our position at the rock, but the cries echoed in a most loud and ominous manner. Doubtless an omen. As they crowed in the distance, we pummeled the witch as punishment for summoning the beasts. Still she made no sound. Though the witch was silent, the forest was not. The sound of cawing crows still echoed from a particular region in the forest itself, as if the land had taken on the cries of the birds and amplified them 100-fold. As the others clutched their ears in pain and fear, I found myself clutching at my greatest comfort, a locket containing a lock of my dear wife proprietary's hair. Proprietary's hair. Ooh. Okay. A proprietor's hair to compose myself as I recited the Lord's Prayer. Unwilling to remain in the same vicinity as the beasts, we turned from our position at the rock and fled for 5 hours in total, going the opposite direction from which the cacophonous cawing had so ominously emanated. While we fled the noise, I noted that a certain region of the forest contained a number of trees that appeared to have been ravaged by a large creature of some sort, and I warned my men to keep their wits about them. I was quite relieved when we left this particular area behind us. Our group continued straight forward on the course we had set away from the terrible noise. When the last sounds of the crows had faded and the forest was silent as a grave, save for the sounds of our party's footsteps, the witch finally broke her days-long silence. She requested that, were she to be left to die, she would be left in a grove of trees that she often sat amongst in moments of silent contemplation. We, being an honorable and compassionate group of men, obliged. She turned at a slight angle and led us in a new direction, with myself directly at her back, keeping a keen eye for any sign of treachery and my men behind me. As we walked, I began to hear behind my men murmur dreadful utterances about how we and our children would be doomed for our trespassing and our violence. I turned and ordered them to be quiet, but each and every man insisted that they had not uttered a word. After traveling for 2 hours in the witch's chosen direction, we came upon a hollow with a white tree at its center. I moved to bind the witch to the tree, a twisted, dying thing. Seeking out one final opportunity to sate her bloodlust, the witch clawed at my face and neck as I bound her, screeching all manner of hellish condemnation and tearing the locket from my neck. It was then that my companions fled, leaving me to carry out the deed on my own. Perhaps they feared she would soon break free of her bindings, and so I was left alone to complete the task. Her strength surprised me, but the power of all that is holy remained on my side, and I succeeded in my efforts to subdue her. I completed the deed, and, so full of fear that I momentarily forgot about the locket, turned my back on the witch to return home. As I left the hollow, I began to feel an agonizing sensation of burning on the back of my neck, as if 2 hot coals had been pressed into my very flesh. I did not turn around to see what was behind me. Instead, I began to run back to town, not slowing or turning back once for the entire journey. Regretfully, I must leave my beloved locket behind. A fear grips me that, should I attempt to return to the forest again, I might not return home. From outside the window, the figure of an old woman in a dark and heavy cloak slowly approaches, watching Good Neighbor writing. I comfort myself with the scene that the witch's twisted heart will lie far away from civilized society forevermore. Still, I confess that I cannot forget the sound of her final cries and the terrible curse she uttered with her last gasping breath. But I can comfort myself with the knowledge that at last, this horridness is behind us. The old woman stands staring in through the window, no longer at Judge Goodneighbor, but at the audience. It's blackout. Oh, yeah, foods. Foods is always good. In the McKays. Oh. It's always fun to harass your sibling. Yes, especially when you're the youngest. But also, because I know you didn't watch the movie, the white rock that they're talking about, I almost guarantee is Coffin Rock. Which Coffin Rock has its own history. Coffin Rock was in the 1800s. A girl went missing, and a bunch of people went out to go find her, and there was a group of 5 that went missing after her during the search. And when they went to go find them, they actually found them tied on this rock. They were tied together by their wrists and ankles, and they were disemboweled, and they were tied in a shape, and only the second movie says that it was a star. Everything else just says that it was some sort of symbol they were tied together in. So I believe that white, it has to be. So we're actually getting more, yeah, I know you haven't. That's why I was saying. And that was also for anybody that may watch this later. So that's just more lore. And also, I'm trying to figure out... See, I still think the game and this are connected in certain ways, because they both have Carver and they both have a timber mill. They're just listed as 2 different things. So I wonder if there was some lore that was released that was very vague, and they both went their certain ways with that lore, which is just interesting to see. So... Also, curse so vile, but we not had the understanding to divine meaning. Here transcribed are from our words, and ye shall suffer the madness of the one called Reynolds, wielding a lantern. Oh, okay. Right. Gotcha. So because you guys missed the first part, I switched out my maps. We actually have the Black Hills Forest. We're actually in the woods now. What Rosemary has asked us to do is to find where Carver is hiding out, where he took the boys and is hiding out. And she got Anthony Repino, who is from the History Museum, to come and help us. Now, we did have a Carver note that was sent to Rosemary, and it did have a little cipher on it. And that cipher, which is why I thought what I thought it was. Well, it's probably the Parr. If you're talking about the shack that was in the game, that's the Parr house, and it might be that. But I actually don't know if it's that, because find us where a shred of property was lost. But the way... See, I thought I had misspelled this or mistranslated it because I thought it was supposed to say property, but it said Propriety. Proprietary? I know I'm mispronouncing that. Because they had weird names back in the 1700s. But that was the guy's wife. So I actually think it's at the tree. I think it's at the tree, and he mentioned it in his note about how when they used to play hide and seek out in the woods, that he would hide at this tree. So I actually think it's the tree where she died. But we'll read some more. And also, I did write down the ciphers for myself to have them at an easier access, because, yeah. Yes, that. Proprietary. It's not proprietary, is it? It's proprietary. It's proprietary. I'm just mispronouncing everything. Tree, maybe, I know, actually I don't know if it, because, like, of the way the forest works is everything is all weird and confused. So, on this map, okay, so the map this map that we have was made by someone who was part of the timber company back in the 50s. And that was in the game too, that the timber company was back in the 50s. It's just a different timber name. So that's what I said is I think that both, I think Blooper and Hunter Killer were given some general information, because I need to rewatch all of the propriety. Oh, of course that's the name. Whatever. Sorry, I hate the good Puritan names from the 16 and 1700s. I think they're dumb, but you know, I could go on about Puritans. But okay, so this map was made by Jonathan. Was it Jonathan Ramos? Hold on. His name is in here. I'm really bad at scanning documents. Thank you, ADHD. Emmanuel Ramos. Okay. So Emmanuel Ramos was the one who became obsessed. He was tasked. He was a cartographer, a geographist, and a cartographer. He was tasked with making a map for the timber company, and he became obsessed with the forest. And he gave all these weird ways for how to navigate the forest. So, because that's what you do in the Black Hills. You become weirdly obsessed with the forest, and it kills you. So basically, we're just going to figure out how to navigate this map, and what we're supposed to do is we're supposed to find where on this map, this is just how the mechanics work, so that we can actually have something we put in at the end of it. So there's the numbers up here and the letters down, or letters up here, numbers down here. So we just got to find which in here is the coordinate to send to Rosemary. And there's actually little things written all over the map. I'm just getting through all of this stuff, and then we'll look at all the little things on the map together. And what came with the map this time is a compass and a magnifying glass. And I'm waiting for something to be weird about the magnifying glass, because there's always something weird. Yeah, chords. Oh, magnifying glass, of course. Okay, so let's see, what is next? Okay, so the next thing is, I've scoured? I don't know what that word is. His handwriting's kind of bad. scoured a few journal pages of a young man named Aloysius Masters for you. Mr. Masters was a member of a search party that combed through the forest for a number of days in the late 19th century, making several valuable, though largely unconfirmed and inexplicable, observations along the way. Masters' journals were passed down through his family for years before being donated to the museum by a great-great-granddaughter who was moving out of town and didn't want to carry much of the past with her. Hopefully her loss will be your gain. Oh, I wonder if this is going to be about Coffin Rock. I bet this is going to be about Coffin Rock. Which I would hope they would, because they need to make this inclusive to people who haven't watched the movie. Which is weird. I think you get more out of it from watching the movie. But it also is making it self-contained too. It's very good. So, March 14th, 1886. Back in town now. Spent the day out in the forest once again. Traveled several hours past the bone white rock where we ended our search yesterday, but still to no avail. We 14 able-bodied men, volunteers from about town who know the area and its peculiarities well, have not been able to find any sign that another human being has ever been in these woods at all. It was tragic, yet not unsurprising, when that young girl became lost in the forest. It still disturbs me to the utmost degree, however, to think that the first group of men and to search for her should disappear as well. So yeah. Yes, we do need to have a Blair, and I'm sorry I haven't been available. It has been weird this past couple of months. I will try to be more available for gaming and movie stuff soon. So probably not this upcoming week, because I've got some stuff I gotta work on. But hopefully when I get back. Yeah, it's been a lot of family stuff more than anything. Family stuff, and we had a planned vacation. I have a little bit more family stuff this upcoming chanting. I have a little bit more stuff coming up this weekend, and then after that I should finally be able to make more schedules with you guys. And again, I'm sorry. I've been trying to be more available, but it's just been rough. But hopefully soon. But okay, so yeah, this is definitely going to be about the Coffin Rock thing I was just talking about. I wonder if they called it Coffin Rock after this. Ooh. I actually don't know the history about when it was named Coffin Rock. So let's find that out together. Because he's just calling it the White Rock right now. So I bet it wasn't called Coffin Rock until what happened. The search party that he's talking about is what I was talking about. So, cool. We, the 14 members of the second search party, want our friends and brothers and sons amongst the lost. And we have found neither hair nor hide of them, and not of the girl herself, for 2 days now. The only discovery of note thus far was that of a puddle of some viscous substance that none of us could rightfully identify, which one man nearly lost a foot to when he accidentally stumbled into it. Though I do not put in much stock in the ghost stories used to frighten children in these parts, I still became deeply unsettled when I set foot into the forest. I feel as though a weight has been pressed upon my shoulders and a pair of eyes has focused on the back of my neck. We will take up the search once again at sunrise. I hope that tomorrow's efforts bring us great success. So that viscous thing he was talking about, that's actually something that showed up in the first movie. There was a viscous substance at one point, so I wonder if that's just like her calling card or whatever. March 15th, 1886. Mr. Robertson, who misjudged a step into the strange puddle, returned this morning with a pair of borrowed boots. He complained that even though he had hung his boots above the fire all night, they continued to be soaked with the strange substance he stepped into. Near the end of the day's search, a member of our party called upon us to report that he had found a human tooth embedded into the gnarled stump of a white tree when he had attempted to sit down to rest upon it. The men wanted almost an hour of daylight The men wasted almost an hour of daylight debating the tooth, half insisting it had indeed human, while half swore it appeared to belong to an animal. One young man named Thomas Guilford was frightened beyond belief by it, trembling like a leaf in a... I can't read that word. Quail, as he insisted that the witch had set her gaze upon us. Leaf in a gabe. That doesn't make sense. I stayed silent, as I did not know what I believed. We found nothing else of note, and when we returned to town, it was with heavy hearts and slumped shoulders, especially when we spied curious children and wistful wives watching us return utterly empty-handed. We all went to our homes shaken and shamed. I am certain I will not be the only man tonight praying for some sign of the missing men. Okay, March 16th, 1886. Thomas Guilford refused to return to the wood today. When the 13 of us came to collect him, we found that he had barred his doors and hung a cross in his window, and he refused to speak to any of us. We embarked without him. Though we encountered neither monsters nor witches, strange events did occur during today's search. While I am by no means ready to join Mr. Guilford in his beliefs concerning witchcraft, I feel I must describe the day's events to assist my own understanding. We began our day much the same as we always had, by spreading out in a fountain intended to cover as much ground as possible. We left perhaps 40 feet between each man to properly cite any potential clues. I can recall with absolute clarity Mr. Josiah Johnson, our party's leader, standing to my direct left. We came upon the large white rock once again, and were about to set out from the stone when I noticed a faint sound. I listened closely to locate the source of the sound, and though it eluded me, it soon became apparent that the sound itself was that of a man calling for help. I turned to my left to alert Josiah, but saw another man instead. Mr. Johnson was now standing to my right, although I had not once veered from my course, nor had I seen another man cross my path. When I attempted to alert Mr. Johnson and the others of the noise, no other man seemed able to hear it, though it was only increasing in volume and desperation. Despite this, the man swore to me that the forest was silent as the grave. It was then I began to hear the voice screaming out my name. I insisted that we follow it. I must have seemed either quite sincere or quite desperate, because Mr. Johnson agreed to break from our planned course. From where we stood at the large white rock, we followed the stream toward the sound I heard. Almost as soon as we changed course, we came across a pile of dead rodents, 10 or more. They appeared to have died fighting one another, as their flesh was torn to shreds. We wasted 2 hours in that same. We walked 2 hours in that same direction. The smell of their rot seeming to linger with us long after we passed them. Then, as we neared a fork in the stream, we sighted a wisp of smoke in the distance, at an angle from our current course. It surprised us all, especially myself. I have been a resident of the town of Burkittsville for the better part of 20 years, and with the exception of certain old wives' tales, there have been no accounts of anyone taking up residence this far out in the woods. We turned slightly to head toward the smoke. We traversed 3 hours through ancient oak trees. I remember thinking of the sound of the wind through the trees' leaves sounded not unlike the whispering of an old woman, and then I realized that I did not feel any wind upon my face. I was about to comment on the strange phenomenon of the wind of the other men when I spotted the cabin. The home was a small structure in ill repair. The smoke we had seen lingered in a haze around the house, though we could not see its source. We went close to inspect it, which required us to navigate a very short stretch of hill terrain. Our sight of the house was interrupted by one of these hills, and when we managed to get behind, crest the hill itself and regain what should have been a direct sightline, the structure was gone. We searched the entire area, but not a single one of us could find any trace of the cabin again. The stream of smoke remained in the sky directly above where the cabin should have been. Mr. Johnson insisted that the sighting of the cabin and the smoke must have been no more than a trick of one of our minds, experienced by many men due to our desperation. Though it took a small delight, though I took small del- no, though I took a small delight in not being the only man glimpsing some sort of phenomenon, I could not help but think enviously of Thomas Guilford sitting in the safety of his home. Sorry, it's like, uh, wait, when did I read? Oh, 10. It's just 10 men. Yeah, it's probably the same house. I'm actually wondering when it was, because this is definitely the Parr house. So I'm wondering how when it was constructed and if Parr just happened to get upon it and live in it, which is quite possible. March 17th, 1886. Two members of our party vanished during one search. The first was Mr. Robinson, who seemingly disappeared into thin air half an hour after we crossed into the wood. Some other man turned to call for him, I do not recall who, and then that calling intensified to a frenzy, and soon the whole search party was running about searching for him. Some suggested he may have turned coward and headed home to Mr. Guilford, like Mr. Guilford had. But a moment later, we set eyes upon a small bundle of sticks wound with a set of slime-covered bootlaces. Mr. Michaels disappeared shortly after. He volunteered to head back to town to see if he could find Mr. Robinson. As it turns out, he never completed his journey. When the remaining 11 of us returned at the end of a fruitless day, it was to the screaming and hysteria of the town. Apparently, sometime during our excursion, someone had placed small wooden effigies in the shapes of men on the doorsteps of Robinson and Michael's homes. Though I did not know either of these men well, I am deeply affected by this strange and sudden loss. Mr. Gillard made the right decision when he chose to stay out of the woods. March 18th, 1886. Last night I dreamt that I was alone in the woods in the dead of the night. As I stumbled around in the dark, I noticed two lights in the distance. They hovered among the trees for a long moment before being snuffed out, leaving me totally alone once again. I cannot help but believe them to be the souls of Robinson and Michaels, lost inside the labyrinthine woods. Or perhaps they were a pair of eyes. I awoke this morning covered in sweat with two small pin pricks upon the back of my neck. They continuously bleed no matter the amount of pressure that I place upon them. I tell myself again and again that it must be nothing other than a spot where I had pricked myself upon a thorn or branch during yesterday's search. After summoning all of my remaining courage, I joined the search party once again. We numbered 5 in total today, as half of the remaining men have refused to join us again. About 3 hours into the day, Mr. Johnson claimed to have caught sight of a footprint. My hopes were momentarily lifted, and I ran to see his discovery. However, I tripped on the way over and hit my mouth on a rock that lay on the forest. Mouth? Yeah, it hit my mouth on a rock that lay on the forest floor, biting my tongue as I fell. My mouth filled with blood, which soon began to dribble out onto my clothing. I soon realized that the rock had knocked one of my front teeth out of my mouth, though I could not find it anywhere on the forest floor. Perhaps I swallowed it in my confusion and pain. To add insult to injury, it soon became apparent that there had been no footprint on the ground after all. The men did what they could to aid me, but we decided to call the day's search short, as we deemed it unwise to separate and allow me to return to the town alone. We returned minutes before sunset, although there should have been all account 3 been hours of daylight remaining. March 22nd, 1886. I have waited several days to collect myself, and I feel as though it is time that I recount that our party discovered on the 7th day of our search. We did indeed find the missing men from the first search party, but it was in no condition any man should be found. I would not wish the violence that was inflicted upon these men, even upon my worst enemy. We discovered there be the same large white rock we saw on our very first day of scouring of the woods. They were long dead and had been butchered like animals, all laid out upon the rock in a natural formation that I can only assume be some form of satanic glyph, as it matches the symbols drawn out their bodies in intermingled blood. It is a star. The authorities have arranged to search for a madman or men and posted guards on the road to town. The guards are to remain there at all hours, but something tells me the perpetrators will elude their grasp. Something tells me they cannot be grasped at all. And it does have... See, this is the way I always thought they were tied. This was something that confused when it's described in the movie. It says that they're tied ankles to wrists, and so I always thought that's the way they were. And then one other thing I watched had their hands all tied together, but it's like, no, that's not the way it was described. It was described ankles to wrists, so it does make a star, but that is how they were found. Sorry, it took me a minute to read this. It's in cursive, but it's not very well written, so it takes me a second. I can't imagine someone younger than me reading this, because from what I understand, they don't teach cursive writing anymore, so I don't know how anyone was supposed to read this other than fumble through it, who wasn't taught cursive writing. That just seems like a really... I'm sure they have an accessibility need somewhere on the website. But we get pointed back to Coffin Rock, because that is definitely Coffin Rock. So now I'm thinking that the Parr House has always been... I bet you the Parr House has always been the witch's house. I just didn't know if that's the way they would build structures in the 18th century. So that's why I didn't think it was the Parr House. Was it 18th? It said that it was 17 something, but I thought it was the 17th century. Oh, anyway. Or it was built... Oh, okay, never mind. This was built later. Okay, just reading around the page. She wants me to build window in the attic. She told me the spot. Plaster interior. Stick-built stone foundation. She needs a basement. She expects company soon. Cement exterior. Okay, so I always thought it was like Parr that built this house. I may be wrong about that, but I think the house that was being seen by them was the original witch house, and it just doesn't exist anymore. So it would be the foundation of it. Which is actually where I think they went in the second movie. But anyway, I'm not counting the second movie as anything canon. But, so she had someone build the house afterwards, and this is the house that Rustin Parr used. Because I don't even know when plaster would have started being used. I actually don't know that answer. Anyway, there's a whole bunch of shit written on the back. Mr. Kip. A fellow stopped by the store as I was closing up just now. Damn near gave me a heart attack, since I could have sworn that I'd already locked the front door. It was the guy who's been living out in the woods. Can't for the life of me remember his name, even though I swear that he introduced himself to me. He bought supplies, nails, shingles, things like that. Said that his place was damn near falling apart. Drew me a picture and made some notes so that I could get an idea of the scope of the project. Said he might come tomorrow morning for more supplies. Wanted to give you a heads up about it in case you're the only one in, because frankly, he doesn't seem to be entirely right in the head. He was caked in dirt, and there were all manner of rotting leaves and pieces of stick entangled in his beard, and he kept trailing off in the middle of his sentences. But surprisingly, he had enough money, and with the way business has been lately, I could hardly turn a customer away. Ned. P.S. Where'd all the scrap paper that we usually keep under the counter go? I went to look for something to write a note on, but this drawing was the only paper on hand. Okay, and this is an architectural drawing complete with a series of handwritten notes, and it's been on file on the museum ever since Kip's hardware department collapsed in the mid-1940s due to a devastating infestation of parasites and mold that the original owners couldn't afford to repair. The lot stood empty until Mike and Bob's convenience store was built in 1951. It pains me to part with this piece of local history, but I don't think that anybody at the museum besides me will even notice its absence, and I know that you're going to put it to good use. So this was for Rustin Parr, because Rustin Parr was the 1940s, was when he stole all the kids. So this is for Rustin Parr. Mr. Kip, you're not going to believe this. Just now I was closing down the store when I heard a dull scratching sound coming from the wall behind the register. Remember last spring when the rats got in the walls? It sounded like that, so I headed to the basement and got the traps. I was only away for a few seconds, but when I came back upstairs, the hermit was in the store again. He was scraping something along the walls with a rusty old knife. I hollered at him to cut it out. He stopped, but he didn't even apologize. Just turned around and demanded that I sell him a shovel because she needed his basement to be deeper. Can't believe a guy like that managed to land himself a wife. I had him pay extra on account of the damage he did to the wall. Looks like he carved a bunch of stick figures. Would you mind painting over those when you get the chance? I'd do it myself right now, but it's late and I've frankly got a pretty bad case of the heebie-jeebies just looking at the things right now. Ned. Mr. Kip. Guess I can just use the sheet as a running log of hermit updates. He visited again towards the closing today. Said he needed an extra pair of hands to help him with a project because he needed it to be done fast. Offered me a good amount of money to help him out on my day off from the store tomorrow, and I said yes. Though I'd let you know just in case, and don't worry, I'll be bringing my hunting knife just in case he's really as off his rocker as people around town say. Mr. Kip, I know it's my day off, but I stopped by to tell you to ban that hermit from the store. Guess you're out on your lunch break, but listen, the man's a menace. I met him on the edge of the forest at sunrise today to walk up to his house. He started on the path to the lumber mill, but soon veered off from the path entirely. We walked in the direction for what I would judge to be 5 hours. As we walked, the hermit would unconsciously mutter under his breath. It's gonna murder anyway. Mutter under his breath to himself, and he'd completely forgotten that I was there at all. I could barely hear what he was saying, but I thought I could make out something about heading toward the hoard of bones. Ooh, okay. We eventually reached a stream, and when we did it, it was like he suddenly remembered that I existed again. He turned to me and started talking about how there's a part of the forest where she pinned the shadows in place with pine needles, and that he made sure to build his place as far away from them as he could. He said that his cabin was another 3 hours down the river, away from the still shadows. He told me that I should count myself lucky that I wouldn't have to see those shadows just yet. Maybe it was just because I was spooked, but in the moment it sure as heck sounded like a threat. I made some excuse about forgetting that my mom wanted me home by lunch and said that I couldn't help him out with his repairs after all. Then I all but ran back to town. I just thought you should know that I'm not going to be serving him anymore. If he comes into the store again, I'm just going to hide out in the basement until I hear him leave. I know that's not very professional, but it's the only thing I think I'll be able to do if I see him again, and that's for God's honest truth. I'll see you tomorrow, Mr. Kip. The house is out. Okay, so I think Rustin Parr was a carver. I think I'm gonna go by the logic of the game that carvers are made, because I bet you the guy who executed the witch was a carver too. I bet she made him into a carver. So I think that's what she does, is she likes to make carvers, people to do her bidding for her. So I know Coffin Rock is important. So I'm trying to think. It still feels like we need to find the tree more than anything. Yeah. So let's see if there's a whole bunch of notes written around this page. So I'm going to read through them and we'll see, because I really think it's the tree that they're at. So let's see. Deep underground. Ancient roots wild through shattered skulls. So this Okay. See, he said there was a pile of bones, right? Isn't that one of the things he said? Heading towards the horde of bones. So that must be the horde of bones. Though the sun makes through the sky, the shadows of the pines stay fixed in place. So this is where she did the pine needle thing. The ground with its dreadful murmurs will cradle careless travelers for eternity. I guess it's where they break off and fall down a lot. Here the vermin fester in the black sunlight, but dance under the light of the moon. The crows feed at blood red dusk. I wonder if this is where they were hearing the crows. Oh, this one's kind of faded. Hold on. Trees and leap into the air, but I will not give in. I hear. Hold on, this one's hard to read. Horde of blankets sound better. Horde of blankets do sound better. I can't read this one. It's like faded when it's on top of the mountain ridge. Something. Here I saw the eyeless creatures horde. Oh no! Here's the horde of bones. This is the horde of bones. Forks of lightning erupt from the clear sky. Tears of the drowned and tears of the drowned ceaselessly flow down the creek. The heavy roots of trees and sacred with claw marks and carvings. The heavy limbs of trees are sacred with claw marks and carvings. I'm going to assume it's where one of these. Sky shines bright red. The sun and moon are nowhere to be seen. I assume it's going to be in one of the areas. I just don't eat ice cream in an air-conditioned place. Oh no! Did you get a brain freeze? Okay, so it would be. Eventually, there's a stream. It was like he remembered that existed. He turned to me and he started talking about how there's a part of the forest where she pinned the shadows in place with pine needles, which is there, and that he made sure to build his place as far away from them as he could. He said that his cabin was another 3 hours down the river away from the still shadows. He told me. Okay. Lost souls weep from nostalgia and regret. So it would be down this river. You're so cold. Oh, bundle up. Get your horde of blankets. So I still think it's only going to be... Because there's some words that are written in one spot, and then there are some words that are written across several spots. So I think if it's going to be any place, it's going to be in the ones that are just one spot. It's going to be where things are written. Because this was the map written by Emmanuel Ramos, not by the carver or by Rustin Parr or whoever this was, the Ned guy. So this would have been years after this when this was written. But he built the house away from the, and this is where the shadows do at home. Aww. Well, hopefully soon you'll get to do that. Dreadful murmurs will cradle careless travelers for eternity. I don't think it's that. I want to say it's where it says the heavy limbs of trees are sacred, are scarred. It's scarred with claw marks and carvings. I want to say it's that one. I bet it's that one. Which is right here. Because I still think... But you're not giving chords, you gotta figure... Yeah, I like this. I like what we're doing on this. But I think it's here. And what exactly it says is... The heavy limbs of trees are scarred with claw marks and carvings. So I think that would be where she died. Yeah. So that is L2. Alright, let's see if that's what it is. Where is... Echo 12. Okay. Alright, and just switching over some things real quick. Boop. That is not what I meant to press. Boop. Boop. There we go. Okay, we probably have new things to read. I want to say... Okay. I want to say it's L2. L2. I think I finally have everything I need. I've got food, map, a hunting knife, HUD's gun, plenty of batteries for my flashlight, a portable Wi-Fi spot, and tank. I'm ready to go. I just need to know where. I'm actually going to pause this music real quick. Boop. Okay, this time it was direct measure, a taunt and an invitation, and God help me, I've got no choice but to answer it. I'm going to ask Anthony to help me out one last time, and then I'm going to send everything I've got to... Okay, so the next... Ooh. The next ones probably won't have... I doubt we'll get Rosemary for the next two. Maybe it'll be Anthony. Managed to sleep for a few hours, dreamed about Liam and Tristan and Hudson sitting around a campfire that grew and grew until it ate all three of them away. I'm going to lose them for good if I don't act now. I just know it. I've got to find Carver, but how? How can I do any better than the search parties have already been doing? There was a stick figure waiting for me in my seat as soon as I got back. I dropped the cup and it shattered all over the porch. I managed to slice my palm open trying to pick up the shards. I can't go on living like this. Something has to give. I've been watching the porch with Hud's gun in my lap all night, but no sign of Carver. I can barely keep my eyes open right now. Going to make myself another cup of coffee. Okay, I should actually have started down here. I mean, I don't know. He's a kid in this day and age, so probably not. I just found two little figures in the front yard. They're made of sticks and twine, and they look vaguely human. I feel sick to my stomach and furious all at once. I spent all day in the museum wading through research that Anthony gathered for me about the other children who have gone missing. He's been helping me out as best he can, trying to teach me about the history of the area. He says he wants me to be armed with knowledge. I've avoided that kind of research until today because it felt like giving in to superstition, but I don't know what else to do at this point. Still, if any of this were real, someone would have found something in the woods by now. Sure, all legends come from the grain of truth, but that's a grain. This time, there were 4 stick figures left on the porch, all different sizes. I found them a few minutes ago when I accidentally stepped on the largest one when I was leaving for work. So those are probably her and the kids. It's a band. Something I forgot to mention when we're talking about the thing from the 19th century, when they were talking about the wrapped up bundle of sticks, that was something that was also in the movie. The first person that got lost from the group found Okay. Well, I'm almost done, so hopefully Like, we're probably almost done, honestly. We will see. Alright, where are we with the good fences? Can't remember which number we were on. Heard about what happened to the porters. It's a damn shame. You notice how it's been awfully foggy lately? Yeah. Sorry. I think this one we've read. Yeah, it's just a new screenshot each time. Sarah Schroeder, I know I phrased this a bit dispassionately when I made my first announcement, but I cannot stress enough now how important it is that every resident of Burkittsville stays out of the Black Hills Forest. Since my last update, I have been finding piles of stones all around the outskirts of town on my walks. Like something is slowly building a wall between us and the forest. The message couldn't possibly be any more clear. Whatever's in there wants to hurt anyone who sets foot into the forest. My children and I have been having nightmares just from the thought of what will happen there next. They've been waking me up in the middle of the night to ask me if they're going to go missing next. What am I supposed to tell them? I understand the concern for poor Tristan Kent and the urgency that many of you feel to resolve his disappearance, as well as the hope that came with finding some of Liam Kent's possessions in the forest. But none of this will end in anything but heartbreak. It never has, not even once. Adrian Tan, who was present for the search party's discovery, has informed me in no uncertain terms that Liam's things appeared to be arranged, not dropped. By trying to search the forest, aren't we playing directly into the hands of whoever or whatever took them? Are you serious? A woman has lost her children and you're worried about what to tell yours about the situation? I agree. No one should be stepping foot into the forest at all. I've been saying this ever since those college students disappeared and still nobody listens. They interviewed my cousin for their we might be done solving this part of this case. We'll see in a moment. They interviewed my cousin for their little movie right before they vanished, and he said they seemed so sweet. Somebody should have warned them off their project. Sarah, I know you're acting in the best interest of the people in this town. That was 20 years ago, and we don't know exactly what happened. Besides, these kids weren't from here. The people of this town grew up with that forest, and we know it better than anyone. Agreed. The kids' family business is their own. My heart goes out to Rosemary. It really does. But at the end of the day, we all have our own people to look out for. These people are just assholes. Okay. I don't think there's any new photos. Yeah, there's no new photos. Okay. Tip line. Gonna turn this off for a second so you all don't know what email I use, even though it's on the previous ones, but shh, ignore that. Okay. Boop. And new message. L2. Okay. Oh. So I picked the wrong place. Let's look back at the map. I'm just gonna put this on top of this. If I click the right button, okay. So we're gonna look at the map again. So I missed something. What did I miss? Because he said he built it away from the pines. And that he made sure to build this place as far away from as he could. He said that his cabin was another 3 hours down the river away from the still shadows. He told me that I should... Okay, so he said he was heading towards the Horde of Bones. So maybe it isn't the... Maybe it isn't the tree. Even though I think it would be. The only thing, maybe it's P2. Let's try this again. Because P2 says, P2 is the one where the crows feed at blood and dusk. Well, oh, it also has to be dark, doesn't it? Here the vermin fester in the black sunlight, but dance under the light of the moon is O3. So if it's not P2, it might be O3. Okay, let's try 03. Wow, it's not those either. Okay. What am I missing? It shouldn't be near this. Because this says, though the sun marks through the sky, the shadows of the pine stay fixed in place. So this has to be where she fixed the pine. Yeah, I know, right? We are trying to find where Carver is in the forest. And we've gotten some clues, and I'm just trying to figure and put them all together. And here are oak trees into the air, but I will not give it. I can't read this one. Let me see if I can get a better. This is just so faded. Okay, don't like how that light looks. That's it. Each square an hour. Oh. Oh. Hold on. Oh, that might be the trick to it all. Eventually I reached a stream, and when we did, it was like he suddenly remembered that I existed again. He turned to me and he started talking about how there's a part of the forest where she pinned the shadows in place with pine needles, and that he made sure to build his place as far away from them as possible. He said that his cabin was another 3 hours down the river away from the still shadows. My soul is weak from nostalgia and regret. Okay. So which creek? He said that they were something about heading toward the horde of guns. So I would assume that they're here, where he's talking about. Down the river. What is considered down the river? I did not get the answer. I'm trying again. Okay, I'm trying to figure out. I need to. What I'm confused about is where the rock is. Where Coffin Rock is. Because I feel. I'm trying. Is there anything in here? See, if I can find. I just need to find where Coffin Rock is. It would have to be near a river.
the house, the Coffin Rock, and the tree are the main things. I guess I gotta reread this. I guess I shouldn't have thought it was that easy. Just 3 hours through ancient oak trees. Okay, so we near a fork in the stream. We sighted a wisp of smoke in the distance at an angle from our current course. It surprises us all, especially myself. I have been a resident of the town of Burkittsville for okay. We turn slightly to head toward the smoke. Okay. An angle from our current course. So they're here, or they're here. We traversed 3 hours through ancient oak trees. I remember thinking the sound of the wind through the tree leaves sounded not unlike the whispering of an old woman, and then I realized that I did not feel I was about to comment on strange phenomenon. And I spotted the cabin. The house was a small structure in ill repair. The smoke we needed and lingering in a haze around. So they went 3 hours, so I guess 1, 2, 3. We went close to inspect it, which regained us to navigate a very road that interrupted a lot of hills. Is it 1, 2, 3? Like which way? It doesn't. It just says it was at an angle from the. It just says it was at an angle from the fork. Then, as we neared a fork in the stream, we decided to as us all. So which fork was it? It has to be this one because these are all the hills. Because it wouldn't be this one. How does creature hoard their bones? And it also says they went through ancient oak trees, and this talks about this being oak trees. So it must have been here. 1, 2, 3. Here? Is it around here? I guess it's around here. Okay, I'm just gonna keep that in mind. Hold on. I got little things I can put on the map. I'm just gonna use candy that I have. It's fine. It's fine. It makes sense to me. Right now I'm thinking it's right there. Which makes sense. That's where the house is. Okay. And let me see if there's anything useful in the pile. Did they talk about where the sign the force is not okay? Desiring to place distance between ourselves and the fair town, we traveled until we came upon a huge bone-white rock. I suggested that we complete the deed here, as it seemed a good spot as any. However, we began to hear a dull noise, sound of hundreds of crows calling in the distance. That's probably right here. Which is going to be an hour from our position at the rock. So the rock must be here. Okay. This has to be the rock. So echoed from a particular region of the forest itself, as if the land had taken on the cries of the birds and amplified them 100-fold. As the others clutched their ears in pain, I found myself clutching at my greatest comfort. Okay. Going to remain in the same vicinity as the beasts. We turned, and these are beasts. Yeah, okay. We turned from our position at the rock and fled for 5 hours in total, going the opposite direction from which the cacophonous. Okay. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's either here. So, either J3 or I3. Because I still think it's the tree. Let's go with J3 first. No? Okay, try I3. Okay, so do you want the house? Okay, then I guess you want the house, which should be R4? R4. Okay, something's not right. What am I missing? Because this should be Coffin Rock. Right? Because Coffin Rock has to be next to the river. No, it is a Reese's Pieces. It's a Reese's Pieces and Candy Rocks. Because I just had a bag of fucking chocolates next to my desk. Yeah. Yeah. I just like having chocolates around. Okay. Let's see. Read. I'm doing something wrong. I think I'm. Let me reread this. The river could soon veered off from the path entirely. We walked in one direction from what I judged to be 5 hours. One, two, three, four. Yeah, it's where I thought right here was the Port of Bones. Chocolate rocks feel the primeval goblin urge to eat aquarium gravel. You know what? That's fair. That is very fair. I just like the way they taste. They're a nice mix of candy coat and chocolate. They're talking about how there's a part in the forest. Needles. So is it... Okay, we're just still going out from there. So there's the house? Okay, there's Parr's house. There is Parr's house. But that's not the same as what they saw up here. But that's one, two. That was still the same spot, I thought. Right? No, hold on. Okay, but this is... So, like, if he goes from... If we're talking about they thought he was going here, but he actually went a different way, that puts him here, which is the Horde of Bones. And then he says it's further away from the shadows, which was over here, so you go this direction. That's where that thought process came from. So that's the Hermit's house. I think I'm just missing where Coffin Rock is. This is still where I think they saw the house originally, because this makes sense because it was from the fort. I'm just worried about... Maybe it's not here, maybe it's here. Let me reread. Sorry, this is a lot of rereading stuff. Okay. Maybe I didn't read. I think I just didn't read that right. The gnarled stump of a white tree. And then an hour of daylight debating the tooth. Okay. By spreading out foundation we came upon the large white rock once again, and were about to set out from the stone when I noticed a faint sound. I listened closely to the source of it, and though it eluded me, apparent that the sound itself was out from getting caught for help, looking for more hours, because the hours is the key here. Despite this, and then I insisted that we follow it. They must have seemed either quite sincere, very great to break from where we stood at the large white rock. We followed the stream toward the sound I heard. Almost as soon as we changed course, we came across a pile of dead... Okay, so... This isn't... Oh, okay. Okay, hold on. So this was just where the corpses of the dead rodents were, not where the Coffin Rock is. But almost as soon as we... So it's still got to be in this area. They appear to have died fighting one another. Okay. So this is where... So they were still around here. Then, as we neared a fork in the stream, we sighted a wisp of smoke. So they just came down here, and I still think that's there. So if they were here, because it was almost... So if that's where Coffin Rock is, that means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. J2. J2. Let's see if that's it. God.
Nope, that's not it either. Okay, what am I missing? Because it was 5 hours away from Coffin Rock, right? Okay, let me reread. Maybe I think I'm just not reading things fully, which is bad. It's my own fault for doing that. Let's read this again. Okay, so we have where Coffin Rock is, where Rustin Parr's house is, and where the original witch house was. So we've got that. So we came upon a huge oven as they crossed and we pummeled the witch was silent, the sound of going amplified them 100-fold. Unwilling to remain in the same vicinity, we turned from our position to the rock and fled for 5 hours in total, going the opposite direction from which the cacophonous calling had so ominously emanated. Okay. While we fled the noise, I noted that a certain region of the forest contained a number of trees that appeared to have been ravaged by a large creature of some sort. That's probably this. And I warned my men to keep their wits about them. I was quite relieved when we left this particular area behind us. Our group continued straight forward on the course we had set away from the terrible noise. When the last sounds of the crows had faded and the forest was silent as a grave, save for the sounds of our party's footsteps, the witch finally broke her dazzling silence. She requested that that's right, they moved one more time. Okay. We began in honor. Yeah, you're so honorable and compassionate. She turned in a slight angle and led us in a new direction with myself directly at her back, keeping a keen eye out for any sign of treachery and my men behind me. As we walked, I began to hear my men in order for them to be quiet, but each and every man insisted that they had not uttered a word. After traveling for 2 hours in the witch's chosen direction, 2 hours, okay. So that's either going to be here or here. Oh, hey. Yeah, you are, because we are getting close to being done. So J4? No, it's got to be still. Was it still on the hill or not? Came upon a hollow, so it's got to be up here. So, no, it's 2 hours, so it's got to be down here. So J4. Alright, let's try J4. J? Oh, wait, which? Hold on. Here's the vision. We came upon a hollow with a white tree at its center. She said, yeah, she moved down. No, they still move. Wait. Hold on. We'll go in the opposite direction from its. Please. Okay, they move more after this. That's what I'm missing. I thought the way this read to me originally. Nerds. Oh, he's talking about I'm using little Choco rocks for markers because I just happen to have them on my desk. I mean, you have to move. He said he moved further beyond them. Right? Because this is over here. Did he move over
Here to get beyond it. That is the... Okay. So is it H4? Let's try H4. Okay. H4. I'm gonna write this down in the book real quick. Where everything is. That was really confusing how that all was written, but fine, whatever. So, Witch House, Bar House, Coffin Rock, and White Dead Tree. I'm going to assume that they started calling Coffin Rock after the people died. Welcome back. I just now got it. So we are at the end now, because I'm terrible. R4. I'm just writing down real quick for myself where everything is in case we need it in the future. Go to and H4. Finally found the fucking tree. It's right here. Right here's the tree. God. That was pathetic. Okay. Okay. Let us listen to... turn my headphones back on. Okay, and now we are going to listen to see what Rosemary Kent says this time.
Good. I've been waiting out here for a few hours. Something told me that you'd find me the answers that I needed today. Now I know where to go. Thank you.
We need a chocolate rock.
Whoa, hold on, boy. Hold on, let me get my bag. You know, it's kind of a relief to be out here. The house is unbearable. It's so quiet. And I hate being at the Silver Moon. I can't stand the looks everyone gives me. More and more lately, I've just been staring out into the woods, or reading about the woods, or
so
sitting
much
up
research
in the middle of the night thinking about the woods. I know, buddy, I know. He seems antsy. I hope he'll be able to pick up a scent. I've noticed when I come out here to search for the boys that the further you go in, the quieter it gets. It's not a peaceful quiet, though. It's tense. Like the whole forest is holding its breath. Hud and I would come out here sometimes when we were first started dating. He knew all kinds of facts about nature. Moss grows on the north side of a tree, he'd say. I have no idea if that's actually true. We used to chase each other around and leave each other these little notes.
This is just filler.
And then a few years later, down the road, Hud started bringing Liam to cut wood with him until...
I'm just not eating the chocolate now. It's great.
Until I lost him to this place. Oh, we're going to get my sons out of here.
Okay, are you gonna find anything?
Even if I have to end up just like Hud, to do
Oh,
it.
God, she's going to be.
Goodbye for now.
Okay. Okay. Well then, that's all we're getting from her, I suppose. I am going to go ahead and guess. I think ooh, that'd be interesting if she was the new Carver. That would actually be super interesting. But for now, I don't think we will be hearing from her again. I bet it's going to be Anthony that takes over the letters to us. I almost guarantee you it's going to be. Okay, but we have done episode 4 of Hunt to Killer Blair Witch. It was fun. I did a little bit of extra work on my own end by not reading things fully. That's on me. That's okay. We solved it. We solved it all together. So, it'll be probably a few weeks before we do the next one. Next Saturday, I'm going to be out of town again. But then after that, I'm going to do the 2 Saturdays from now is going to be the Genocide route. And then after that, because I guarantee I'll have it by then, I will do the next Hunt to Killer. And after that, hopefully we'll fall into a little of doing visual novel Saturdays when we're not doing Hunt to Killer. So, thank you all for joining me. And I'm glad that we got that through and got that done and out of our hands. So we will be off. But I will see you all on Monday. I'm going to attempt to get Silent Hill 3 between now and then, and hopefully we'll do a long stream and just do Silent Hill 3 on Monday. That is the plan. That is the aim for right now. So, but until then, I will see you all shortly. Thanks for your answer. I appreciate it. But I will go ahead and sign off for now. Thank you again for coming by and for joining me while we figured this out. And I will see you all on Monday. Bye!